Welcome to Jung at Harp, episode number 158, The Power of Practice. I'm Kathleen.
The practice of practice.
Oh, the practice of practice. The power of the practice of practice. Maybe the unconscious is giving us a clue here. The practice of practice is the official title, and I wrote it down. I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian Psychoanalyst, and I'm here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a mentor, composer, creative coach, harpist. We both play the harp, and that is why we call this Jung at Harp. And almost every week we come together with a question to explore. We don't start with answers, we start with a question, and we see what bubbles up between us and you in the conversation. So if you're joining us live and you're on a platform that allows you to add in a comment, please do join in. We'd love to hear your thoughts, input, and wisdom gems. So, the practice of practice. Deborah, why don't you
You
start?
may be wondering, why did I choose this morning? A couple of reasons. First of all, you took a quick break and I sat down and I started practicing my practice routine, which is and it starts with arpeggios, and my hands were very like, oh, hello, are you awake yet? And I know that in 5 minutes, if I do this for 5 minutes, my hands will have a completely different relationship to everything I do. If I do it for 10 minutes, they'll have an even greater relationship. And if I do it for the 20 minutes that I created the warm up for, my hands are a completely different place to live for the entire day. And everything that I do with my hands is a joy. And so I was thinking about that because last night I was meeting with my team and we were talking about the upcoming challenge. And we were getting the opt-in page ready, and I said, where's the playbook for this? And we couldn't find it. And when we did find it, it didn't have a checklist for all the things that we needed to do. And I was like, how are we going to get any kind of fluency with this if we don't have a checklist and it's all in my brain? And then as I was saying that, I thought, hello, this is something that I haven't set up for myself. Practices that create fluency. And because I'm constantly working with harpists in Hip Harp Academy and helping them develop fluency and connection to what they're doing, I'm aware of what it takes. And last night I was doing that with somebody where I was setting up something that I'm about to teach. And one of the things that I did was said, okay, keep doing that. Okay, let's do that 10 times. And we did it very slowly. And it was very clear when we talked about it afterwards. I said, if you were alone, would you have done that for 10 times slowly the way we did it? And she was like, I would not. And I thought, and therefore, you never would have achieved the fluency that you got to. And that's when I connected it to myself. And I was like, hello, and you, since you don't do things 10 times slowly and get clear on it, and I was also asking her questions like, okay, what did you notice? And what did you notice about these two parts? And then what did you notice about them fitting together? So at every step of the way, I was watching her and I was watching her connection. It's fascinating to me that I can see as people's bodies start to connect to what they're doing, everything shifts. So it's fascinating to me to watch somebody do something over and over again. You'd think it would be super boring, but when I'm watching their coordination start to connect, it's fascinating. And yet I am not setting either of those things up for myself. Why? Because I do not have the practice of practice.
Yeah, you said something that I've been thinking about and actually shared a reel on my Instagram account yesterday about how we need to take psychic space. And to take psychic space means we have to slow down and still our mind from the outside distractions and listen. And to practice a practice, we have to do that. We have to give ourselves space, not just external space, but internal space to slow down and do that thing over and over and over again. because one of the definitions of practice means to perform or exercise regularly, to do something repeatedly. I can remember when a musician friend of ours said to me, to be a good musician, you have to love repetition. I was just starting to play the harp, and I sometimes chuckle about that because I think it's very true that, what you're saying about observing, of doing something 10 times slowly, is that repetition is what builds in that sense of connection that's deep within oneself. And giving ourselves space for that is really the first step for the practice of practice.
Okay, beautiful. So first of all, what I'm hearing is, and I'm obsessed about my light because I'm in a new place and it keeps shifting. So I apologize for doing that. Which means that I'm not really okay. So I'm just going to focus in on what you're saying. I heard you say repetition, and in
Mhm.
French, répétition is the word for practice or rehearsal, and or it's the one for rehearsal. And as you were talking about um, repeated, and I was thinking, okay, so meditation, I know it's a practice, and what's the repetition within that practice? And then I thought, well, it's the repetition is as you go away, you come back. I mean, you know way more about meditation than
Mhm.
I do, but I'm thinking that for me, like I said, it's fascinating to watch other people get fluency, but I don't see it with myself
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
appreciate it with myself. But I'm thinking that in meditation, watching myself go away and then bringing myself back to center or to nothing and doing that over and over again, now that I have that idea, that could actually be very interesting, that repetition.
Yeah, I'm thinking about in the embodiment circle, there are 6 practices, essential embodiment practices, and we focus on one a month.
Mhm.
And of course, they're all in some ways going on holographically and simultaneously, but we have to break it down to minutia. This is part of the practice of practice. We practice one piece and one piece, we practice them separately, and then the organic intelligence we are pulls it together in a way we experience the synthesis of it. But the practice often involves a specific skill or method that we follow, that we're practicing. In fact, one of the distinctions about what practice means is it's the application or use of an idea, belief, or method versus theories about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Love that. So
yeah, so
applying.
it's the application of it. And so, for instance, with the first practice for embodiment, body awareness, the practice of doing a body scan, morning, evening, consistently day after day, builds what I call a psychic muscle, to where one then begins to be in touch with what's going on in your body in a much deeper, fuller, constant way. And so your practice of arpeggios is beautiful. And I was thinking, I wish I could go that fast, but I haven't done the practice of practice with it. I practice it and I'm faster than I used to be, and it's still musical. Um, so that being willing to be present to the repetition and not just doing it removed from it, but present to it. Last week we got to how presence
Right,
needed to be the 6th P.
right. As you're talking about that, first of all, I created a set. You're talking about being present within it, and I think that's what you just said, right? Being.
Hmm.
I was thinking about two things. First of all, I wanted to kind of show what I was teaching her because I wanted to break it apart again, but also, so I created for myself a set of warm ups that would work all these specific parts. And part of, and
Hmm.
we've just released the lever harp version of it. So I'm
Hmm.
going to give that to you so that you
Okay.
can practice it. And part of having this routine, and it takes you through all the keys, it teaches you both the techniques and also the experience of modulating. So, but it allows you to be present within arpeggios, present within scales, present within, certain other things. And part of the way that it allows you to be present within them is by having created this word we use all the time, container. And I created it for myself because I used to try to practice the harp, and I had these pieces, but they didn't really practice what I wanted to practice. And so I was like, I want something that will get me really familiar with every single key of the harp, and I can just focus on exactly what I'm doing. And so in this particular one, well, I'm on pedal harp right now, but it starts in the flattest key. It goes through this progression, which you can also sing to. And now it's gone through that progression, and now it goes to another key, and it does the same thing. So it goes around and around. And so there is a container for it, in that there are only so many keys on the harp. And of course, when you're first learning to do it and you can't do all the keys, you can do it. You can say, okay, I'm just starting. I'm going to do it in 2 keys, from here to here and back. That's all I'm doing. So not only is that a container, but it is an expandable container. And so I want to talk about that first, because I'm really thinking about how to create the practice of practice in my own life. And I was able to create that container for myself with the harp. I was like, I've had it. I'm done with trying to figure out what to practice. I want to make this one thing. It's got this application. If I'm really having a hard day, I can watch, a video while I'm doing it. It's that focused. I have not created those things for the rest of my life. I don't even have a practice like that for brushing my teeth. I don't even have a practice like that for feeding the cats in the morning. All the things that fragment me through the day and take me away from being an embodied presence. Yeah. I have not created practices for them. And so can I show one other thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was showing to, and it was showing to Tammy, and what I was doing, I'll tell you what I was doing in a minute. So ultimately, I wanted her to be able to do this. So it's 3 things. 3 things are happening there. She's playing a specific progression that happens to be in the upcoming harp improv challenge. It's a progression that gets used all the time in music and all the time in jazz. And so I call it the power progression. So that was part of it. The other part of it is I wanted her to be able to do a technique called stride. Bass, accompaniment, bass, accompaniment, bass, accompaniment, bass, accompaniment. There are 2 patterns at play here. This one, and this one. And I also wanted her to be able to play the right hand at the same time. And she is a beginner to intermediate. She's an early intermediate player, or maybe intermediate. Yeah. And she looked at that and she was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. But I was able to break it down and not just show it to her, but have her practice that 10 times. Over and over and over again, and then practice this part over and over again, and then practice this just the first half. And then when we finally put the notes to it, I was going to have her play what I just played, but then I was like, wait a minute, no, I want it to be so connected that this note is the same as that, and then just leave it off for a minute. This note is the same as that. And so within less than 15 minutes, I think, she was doing it. And I know that she was surprised. And I could watch that whole connection. So why is this important? Well, now she can sit down and not just play that, but it is the foundational structure of all kinds of improvisation.
Yes.
So that's what I want for my life with the things that I'm just like, la, 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 la. But I don't mean stuff on the harp. I figured it, I know how to break down the harp. I don't know how to break down life. Help, Kathleen!
Well, you know, the thing about life that's different from the harp is life is constantly changing. The harp is the same. But
Don't
the
get me started
instrument.
on that, because that's the thing I love about it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing with life is that, you know, it's the river flowing and it can flow different ways, and then the air moving changes it. I mean, I think that what we have to do is we have to have we have to have a practice of being ourselves. You know, the practice of practicing being true to our own nature, the practice of practicing staying in our own core, in our own true self. You know, the practice of practicing coming back to an alignment in us, or our own center. This is the practice of practice that we need to navigate the changing river of life. And most people think it needs to be a tool or a technique or a schedule or this fancy thing. I mean, this is why there's such a massive self-help book industry. You know, it's always, what's the latest thing? Well, you know, maybe somebody's ideas will work for us, but ultimately, what's going to carry you or me through is the practice of practicing being with myself, to know how my river's flowing and how my river of energy is being affected by the outside currents coming toward me. And no one else is going to be able to tell me that. You know, only I'm going to know that, because nobody else is me. Now, you know, again, somebody else may have ideas that resonate for me. So what I do with the embodiment circle and the embodiment practices is say, these are the practices that are going to connect you to you. This is how you're going to have a practice of practicing being present to yourself and moving from your own core, because that's what makes the difference in how life goes for us.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, do I really want to be present to myself? I mean, I was grumped this morning. Do I really want to be present?
Well, I mean, this is the dilemma, isn't it? You know, it's like the old kind of joke about the geographical move. The problem is you're there. Once you move, you
Right.
think, well, if I just move, everything will be okay. Well, the problem is then you're there too. You know?
So, first of all, it seems, Kathleen, when you move away even a little from this, that the audio is different, but I don't know if that's true. So
Okay.
if people are out there listening, if you could let us know. We're in a new studio and it's a little hard to organize it. So as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, well, what do I want? What is different every day, but I want it to be the same. So I want to come
Mm.
into the kitchen in the morning. I want the blue bowl for the one cat and the orange bowl for the other cat. I want them right there. I want his pills right there. I want her hydration, blah, blah, blah over here. And I want to be able to, just like, and I want them to then eat. But even if they didn't eat, I would like to not, I would, it's an ordeal every morning. So like, where are the bowls? Did I do this? And then are they eating or are they not eating? How do I get them to eat? And it's just, I mean, like, this is just a little tiny thing in my life. I mean, it's a little tiny thing in a life in which I have big things that are beautiful and wonderful and that I have routines for. And yet these little tiny things I have not taken the time. Okay, so years ago when I had a big team physically in my office, I had something called the workstation. And I had it that whenever I had an idea, I wanted to be able to immediately grab a pen, write it down. I did not want to be stopped in life by the fact that I couldn't find a pen. So I had this elaborate system of checklist of every table had to have the following things on it. And the whole point of the following things on this was that when I had an idea, I could capture that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get now that I could probably pull out my phone, blah, 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 if I knew where my phone was. But the beauty of the workstation was that it was a practice in creating life around me. So you said a minute ago that one of the things that makes the harp us able to, engage with it in that way is that it doesn't change.
Right.
And although, yes, I worked with Kamak to create a new harp, but now that one doesn't change, thank goodness. And I've always said, you can become a virtuoso only because the thing that you're playing does not change. If the thing that you are playing or working with constantly changes, you can become a virtuoso at change, maybe, but basically your engagement with like we have this setup here in this restream that I was used to. I followed a routine, I could get us in. I can't even figure out how to get us in now. So my ability to be present changes. So what am I saying? I think I'm saying that, first of all, I did not accept that it changed. If the very first day it changed, I was like, uh-oh, this changed. Where's my checklist? Let's change the checklist.
But you know what I'm thinking is from a life perspective, and the perspective of being a Jungian analyst, is I want to be a virtuoso at being me. If I'm a virtuoso at being me, then that is going to make all the difference in the world with what I'm doing every day, whether it's, trying to find the cat bowls because they're not where I wanted them to be or put them, or it's playing a piece of music that I have played 100 times, or playing a piece of music I'm just playing for the 10th time. So, I think that the variable for me as a Jungian analyst that is most important is the practice of practicing being the virtuoso I'm destined to be, and if I can do that, that's going to change everything for me, because then if the cat bowls can't be found, or I'm stumbling to learn the next phrase in, song, or I'm where Tammy was yesterday with you saying, I can't imagine doing that. It's going to allow me to be present. I'm going to bring that word back in, present in a way that I can then engage with the practice of practicing the thing over and over, whether it's the practice of practicing the breakdown like you showed Tammy, or the practice of practicing putting the cat bowls in a certain place at the evening meal, or so. But it starts with the presence of being the presence with oneself, which I would say is practicing being the virtuoso.
I'm having a very powerful emotional response to what you're saying. It's beautiful. What I'm getting when you said that, I was like, oh my God, I have not actually been taking on the practice of me. So
Yeah.
me
Right.
as a teacher is constantly breaking things down so that they can be engaged with physically. But me as a slave driver of myself
Mm-hmm.
is, why can't you do this?
Mm-hmm.
We have to go on to the next thing. And so I literally, it never occurred to me that when I am being like that with myself, I'm not taking on the practice of me.
Right. That's right.
Well, I am. It's another me, but it's like it's a messed up me. It's a like a frantic and it's not the me I would be. Oh my goodness, sorry. Well, you are a Jungian psychoanalyst, but it's not my mother when she was being a good teacher. It's my mother when she was being out of control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so from a Jungian perspective, we could say you kind of get caught in a persona or in an identification with an internal introject, where you might imitate. But we all have
A lot
that.
of people are like, I know it could be all right. I'm like Kathleen, it's so
Yeah.
weird in here.
I mean, we all have those internal patterns. I like to call them feedback loops that can take over. And again, you know, the practice of practicing being present to oneself, of being me, and I'm going to go back to the embodiment practices for a minute, is what begins to help us know, oh, wait a minute, this is feeling like it's pulling me out of myself. Feels like it's pulling me into something old and historical and hysterical, and that's really not the me I want to move from here. And so if we know the felt sense, that's the word that I like to use, the felt sense of when we're actually in alignment with ourselves, we're moving from our core. If we know what that feels like in our body, and how that feels energetically, then when we start to get pulled into these old feedback loops, the mother we said we'd never be like, or whatever, we energetically go, oh, okay, I know this, and this is not the whole me. This is not the true me. This is something I learned. I don't want to keep emulating.
It's so interesting because as you're saying that, I'm like, I hear you, and on the other hand, it's kind of dramatic over there, and that's kind of fun.
Well, now you're getting to that, sometimes we hold on to these kinds of things, even though these patterns, things being these patterns, even though they cost us a lot energetically, because some other part of us gets a gratification from it.
Can I stop just one moment? I want to remind everybody that theoretically, if you're on a platform that allows you to chat, you can actually chat with us. And if you have a comment or if you have a question, you can put it in. And again, this is all different this week. So I'm not sure if it's working. So if somebody's out there and you do have access and
good.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, so it is working.
Yeah.
All right. Oh,
yes.
wow. Okay. And I want to share this.
Yeah.
Okay. For the practice of being myself or playing the harp, I have to stop pushing and criticizing myself and be so beautiful, slow and incomplete.
Yeah.
As I am now. And I mean, I think as I'm reading that, and I'm so glad you used the word incomplete, because it's something that I'm really working with now. And I'm about to take a workshop called, Incomplete Items Inventory, of looking at all the incompletion in my life, because I realized that I am walking around tethered to my sense of incompletion. So I really love that you use that. For the practice of being myself or playing the harp, I have to stop. I would have to stop pushing and criticizing myself and actually be as slow and incomplete as I am right now. And it's so interesting because this is something that I discovered as a runner, that I am very slow and incomplete. And I am quite happy with it, because I simply made the decision that I'm out there running because I like the feeling and because I like actually looking at the things that are out there, and I like breathing the air that's out there, but not because I'm going to become a better runner, but actually so I realized, Kathleen, I'm actually practicing. Would you be willing to name you said you go through 12 or embodiment?
Sure. Yeah. And essential embodiment practices. And you can find information on that at onlinesacredcircles.com. We work with 6 embodiment practices. The first is body awareness. The second is relaxation. The third is rhythmic breathing. The fourth is mind awareness. The fifth is concentration and use of a mantra. And the sixth is developing the will. And they all are so easy to dismiss. People are like, oh, I know about relaxation. Well, you know what? Knowing about it, having the idea, again, is not the practice of it. And the practice of practicing, sitting day in, day out, twice a day, really listening to your body, not judging it. I think what Monica said is so important. Not judging it, not criticizing yourself,
Mhm.
and and you know, knowing that incompleteness is the reality of consciousness, because the unconscious is where wholeness is found. So the sense of self that we are and that we have is always going to feel a lacking of something, because we're not the whole, we're not the totality. Jungian individuation is about becoming more whole, integrating more of who we are, which does expand our consciousness. But this gets into a whole nother idea and that we could talk about another time, which is the power of limitation. We tend to think that limits are deficits,
Right.
or incompleteness means deficits, but it doesn't. And I hope that in your workshop you're about to take, along with the incomplete list, you get to make a list of fulfillments, and where things feel as if they've become, for now, the whole they need to be. They've ripened to the degree they need to ripen. Because those two things coexist. And part of the dilemma is that we can get caught feeling as if the incompleteness is a deficit when it's just a normal state. And it means there's a lot of places where there's fullness, or there has been a cycling of energy that's complete.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. And I think that this workshop is in part accepting that, and understanding that. As you were talking, I was thinking two things. First of all, I was thinking about the I'm always thinking about the caterpillar and the butterfly, and I'm like, so you're a caterpillar, you do everything a caterpillar is supposed to do, you do the whole thing, it's all done. Thank God I did it. I'm a complete. Oh my God! Now what am I? This is a whole new thing. You come out and there's a whole new level of like what it is there is to do. So I'm realizing that as we transform, even we do not maintain. But more on that another time. What I was interested in, and one of the reasons I asked you to name those embodiment practices, is as you were talking earlier, I was thinking, oh, that's so interesting, because I have named the 4 quarters in Hip Harp Academy after the practices that are most important to me. Discovering the power of pattern, that structure is freedom, grounded expansion, and creative resonance. These are the things by which I live, and by which I understand the world, and therefore by which I can teach. But if I were to look at those every day and say, okay, here you are trying to do this again. How will pattern help to empower you? How will structure give you freedom here? How can you ground yourself so you can get expansion? And what does creative resonance look like? If I look at those, then I could actually start practicing being myself. And if I then go to the strings of passion, which are the more practical application, what's the impulse here? What's the structure? What's the character that I want to embody? What are the roles? What's the deconstruction? Then I can also, and I love how you said knowing it doesn't do anything, because not only do I know these things, I teach them. I created, but am I living them? No.
Right.
No. And it's one of the reasons I love to teach them, because when I teach them, I am living them. When I'm showing Tammy how to do something, I'm experiencing it in a way that I either don't or won't with myself. So, Miss Kathleen, here's okay, we have like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's connect this. I know this and you know this. How do I then apply it to my life, my own practices that I know? How do I apply that?
You do it.
Yeah.
You do it.
That's like dancing. Don't try, do it.
I'm imagining, I was just thinking when you were talking about those 4, okay, your thing about the morning and the cat balls. Okay, so the power of pattern. What's the pattern that needs to be in place around the kitchen organization and around the timing of the feeding and this and that. And then what is the structure you need to set up to support yourself in that? And then how can you be grounded and really present to yourself in the midst of that so that there can be a creative expansion?
As you're saying that, I was thinking exactly what I would need, and I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, I was imagining that I have a mat that's made out of plastic, and it has a picture for, bowl, blue bowl, orange bowl, blue medicine, orange medicine, and then some kind of statement at the top to help me be present. And as I thought that, I was like, that is ridiculous. That is you. And there was all this, you shouldn't have to do that. And yet it would be so beautiful for me and my mind.
It would be beautiful for you and your mind, and it would give you the support that you need, the groundedness that you need. When we dismiss that what we need to support us is wrong, bad, whatever, we judge it, we really do a lot of damage to ourselves. And we do this. I work with people all day long, and I work with me. We do this all the time inadvertently. So,
I have a
yeah.
question. So in my brain, I'm like, I don't want to have to do that for myself. I want somebody else to do that for me.
Well, we're in the purview of analysis now. We all want a mother.
Okay, so is the answer to that, I hear you, dear. Now grow up.
Well, I think it's just accepting that a part of us, and this is, Jung wrote about this, and oh gosh, Neumann wrote about this. All the I'm doing this. All of them wrote about this because there's a part of us that just wants to be in the womb, and we don't have to do anything because everything comes into the womb that we need. It's all there, and we don't have to do anything. I mean, one of my analysts used to say, we're all far more baby than we want to admit. We all want to just lay there and we coo, we smile, we holler, we scream, we kick our legs, and we get everything we want, And if we have the good enough caregiver, for the first few weeks of our life, it can set up an internal structure that then allows us to respond to ourselves in that way.
I see.
And the degree to which we didn't get that, which all of us have some degree we didn't get that because there's nothing perfect, then we end up longing for it as adults and shooting ourselves in the foot because we keep thinking something in the outside world is going to be that, and it's not.
I'm hearing what I'm hearing right now, and I know we have to go, is I'm hearing that it never resolves. If it doesn't, then we are constantly longing for it, which is a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful part of life, and it's a beautiful part of music that there is longing. Wow. I see why people come to you as an analyst, and I see why they come to the embodiment circle. So I look forward to exploring this more. There were so many parts in this to explore, and I will take on making a ridiculous whatever I need in order to make cat feeding time into a game and a joy and something that employs the power of pattern, the structure, the freedom of structure, the creative resonance, and grounded expansion. I commit to that.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I look forward to seeing you. We're going to have a little bit of an absence here due to my traveling and presenting, but we'll be back and we'll see each other soon.
Okay. Do you know what day we'll be back?
Probably the first Friday in October.
Wow. Okay. 1 month without Kathleen. Okay. Well, it was so wonderful to see you this morning. And thank you, everybody, to having come. And I loved your comments. And for all the comments that you thought but didn't send, we love getting them afterwards as well. And thank you so much, Kathleen. And I'll look forward to seeing you.